Welcome to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast here on your favorite podcast platform. We are here every single Monday through Friday. And of course, we're now Tuesday of the 19th week of Ordinary Time. And we're continuing our discussion about Deuteronomy. And then, second half of the program, we're going to be continuing our interview with Dr. Tracy Rowland, coming to us from Australia. From Sydney, in fact. And she's going to continue discussing with us about Cardinal George Pell. But today we're looking at the book of Deuteronomy as we were yesterday. And remember, this is the last book of the Torah. These are the 5 books of the Bible that are core to everything that the Jewish faith does. And of course, at the time, they were called either Israel or the Hebrews. So it is Deuteronomy, and what we're going to look at is the passing of the leadership from Moses to Joshua. So Moses has been leading the people out of Egypt, leading them through the desert. Now we're in the next generation because, of course, of the issues with the rebellion of the people. And now Moses is preparing to bring the people to the promised land. Is interesting and something important to reflect upon in light of especially the latest issues coming out of the Middle East. And that is that the Lord has made it clear that he is restoring Israel to the promised land, but that means that they have to remove the people who are already there. And this reality makes this one of the most tense areas of the world consistently over the millennia. But remember, why is it that God has this favor for Israel? Now, first of all, because he chose them out of all nations. And it was simply that way. He didn't choose them for any particular reason. He just happened to choose them. So Israel is the chosen people. They are the people out of all the nations that exist that he has chosen, and they will be the vesicle or the vessel of his message. And the other thing, and this is a powerful reality that most people don't understand, and that includes people of faith and people of no faith. You can't fully comprehend what it is that God is doing if you don't understand evolution, and at least the processes of evolution. And again, as I've said before, when people say they don't believe in evolution, what they don't believe in is biological evolution. But there's all different forms of evolution. And through time, there is a whole new understanding. It develops through time. Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin called it the noosphere. Now, you have to understand that a lot of people considered Father Teilhard de Chardin, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a heretic. Well, yes, he got a lot of things wrong, as anyone who is the leader of their field gets wrong. Even Sigmund Freud, people say today, got a lot of things wrong in psychology, but he was the father of psychology. So you're going to find that. That's always going to be the case. But there's something fascinating that he brought up that is neither in or out of church teaching. It's more science. He was a paleontologist. He was a Jesuit priest and a paleontologist. And he was the first one in the Catholic Church to say evolution and Catholicism are very compatible. And so one of the things, and he got a lot of things wrong, but some things he got right. And one of the things he talked about was a noosphere. Now, noosphere doesn't really exist, but what it is that reality of growing human knowledge over the millennia. So, if you look at that as a mechanic, it's not mechanical, obviously, but if you're just going to, you'll stick with me on this. If you look at that as a mechanical reality, then when we see what the Lord does with the Jews, he is entering into and putting into the noosphere, into this whole process of a growth of understanding the divine revelation of wisdom. And this is the whole message of the Jewish people. If that did not happen, then we would go exactly the route of any people who had no understanding of divine wisdom and lived under the auspices of original sin. And there it is. So he is entering into a form of wisdom into humanity that begins with the Israel. And with that, he brings in this deeper, more profound understanding. And this continues. Consider it almost like a vessel that continues until Jesus comes along. And remember, the reason why he came along? The fullness of time. So time is so key here, and time is part of this process, which is exactly what Teilhard de Chardin would say as well. And this time is this process where a new understanding comes along, and eventually when Jesus comes along, he adds this new to this new understanding, and then we enter into the Christian period. So this is which extends to the whole world. So this is this is where this whole moment comes into. It's a powerful moment that we're looking at, where we're starting to understand that the Lord is bringing into this whole this new reality, this new wisdom that needs to be introduced into humanity. And this is how he does it, through Israel. So what he's going to do is he's going to establish this nation, and in order to do that, he has to push aside the other nations, not because of the people, because of their lack of understanding. Remember, they're all pagan. They're all, to the best of we know, they're all, or at least most of them, but I believe they all are practicing human sacrifice. They're all coming into this whole pagan reality that is contrary to the ultimate wisdom that is central to humanity. So you see all that. So this is a powerful moment that as they're going into the promised land, and this is something we see that the whole journey for the 40 years is all about preparing the people to become this vessel. And with that, think of it almost like an injection into a body that the body could not produce itself. And this is what is happening, this injection of divine wisdom that is brought into human understanding through the Jewish people, through Israel. So this is a powerful moment. So what's going to happen is now Joshua is going to take over. He is going to become the new Moses in a sense, and he's going to lead the people through the promised land. Now, the other thing that's going to happen that's important is you're going to learn of these battles with these other cultures. You probably remember the song, Joshua Fought the Battle of Jericho. Well, of course, when you have this song, Joshua Fought the Battle of Jericho, that's an actual event that actually happened. There's been biblical archaeological evidence of this, and they've studied this and come to understand that, yes, there really was a Battle of Jericho. And why is Israel taking over Jericho? Why is it taking over the land? Again, because this is the land that God gave to them. But why is that? At the bottom of this, so that there is going to be injected into human reality the wisdom that is of God. This is powerful. I know I talk about that a lot. So this is powerful. This is really powerful. Well, it is. When you really understand what the Lord is doing in the Bible, we understand these powerful truths that the Lord is giving to us in various ways that we couldn't understand if we didn't have the book of Deuteronomy or the Bible or the Jewish people or all of this. It would never be there, and then humanity would not last as long as it so far has. Because what drives us is this wisdom. Now, that doesn't mean that the Israel got everything right perfectly, nor does it mean that the Catholics get everything right perfectly, or other Christians. This is our also deepening our ability and our seeking to understand that divine wisdom. That's what our human reality is about, and to live by that divine wisdom. So this is, if we really want to take up a word that would describe what this is about a human reality manifestation of cosmology, the whole reality of the universe. We're going to be we're going to pop up again on the other side. I hope I didn't say that exactly right, but we're going to return on the other side of the break with our next part of our interview with Dr. Tracy Rowland, talking to us about Cardinal George Pell. So we're going to be talking about that in the second half of our program. And we're continuing in this week with more of the book of Deuteronomy. So in the meantime, remember where you can find us before we go into a break. We are the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. Where you're listening now, subscribe and also comment if you want to. That's really important. So let us, we're going to take a break right now, and then when we come back, we're going to listen to Dr. Tracy Rowland. We'll be right back right after this.
You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back. We're about to enter into the second half of the program, and we're also going to be listening to the next part of our interview with Dr. Tracy Rowland. I spoke to her. She was in Sydney, Australia at the time. And, of course, I'm here in Boston, Massachusetts. It was interesting. I called her at 7 p.m. our time, which is 9 o'clock a.m. their time tomorrow, I think. But anyway, let's switch over the interview now. Oh, what I also find is, just consistently, he knew what he believed in knew what he believed in every aspect of the church, and stood up for what he believed in, even to his fellow cardinals. And I'm thinking of, and I forget who brought this up. Oh, it was George Weigel, where he even countered the cardinal out of Chicago, whose name just went out of my head. Obviously, I know him well. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
In regards to his explanation of when to use the gospel in a document.
Yes. Yes. I have heard that story. I think I heard something like, I better not go into that because my memory is too fuzzy on that.
Sure, that's fine.
But certainly he had no reservations about, telling fellow cardinals what he thought. But he wasn't, I would say that, like, he was a very manly sort of a guy, and he wasn't nasty or, the comment would just be made man to man, and he would expect the other cardinal to be man enough to be able to either accept the comment or say, no, I don't agree for the following reasons. He was very open to discussion and debate, and especially like with people like myself, like scholars, writers, people who wrote about ideas. He would quite happily talk about what we had written and whether he agreed with us or he didn't agree with us. I didn't always agree with him. He didn't always agree with me, but he would always say that I was on the side of the angels, which meant basically, she's a good thing. Like one of the issues where a lot of people who loved Cardinal Pell didn't actually agree with him was over the constitutional referendum in the late 1990s, which was a question of whether Australia should ditch the British monarchy and become a republic or not. And Cardinal Pell supported the Republican campaign, which was sort of led by every kind of Marxist intellectual in the country. And then all these sort of, true believing Christians, Catholics and Anglicans and, every variety of Protestant were all kind of bound together, sort of saying, no, we want to retain the monarchy. At least it is ostensibly, in theory, a Christian institution. And if we go to a republic, it'll just mean that some oligarch, probably some oligarch without any Christian values at all, will end up being the president, because you end up, needing a lot of money to be able to run for positions like that. So it's a choice between an oligarch or, Queen Elizabeth. We'll take Queen Elizabeth any day. So that was the sort of mentality. So many people in that book didn't actually support him on that point.
That's fascinating. And I would suspect that he would be more a monarchist. It actually fascinates me that he was more on the Republican side.
I think a lot of people think that was a moment when he was just tired of fighting the left on every front and just thought, oh well, I'll go with them this time. But his mother was an Irish Catholic, but his father was an English Protestant. Oh, and wow. I think maybe he swung a bit in the direction of his mother on that point. But he actually, he was right. He was right at home with people from royal families, and knew many of those in Europe who were the leaders of the Catholic royal families, and he never had any trouble relating to them. He had friendships with them. But one great story, which I'm pretty proud, is that the Australian ambassador to the Holy See, John McCarthy, who was a friend of the Cardinals, John, when he was the Australian ambassador, he organised a cricket game between the Holy See and the Queen's household. And cricket is, of course, the quintessential English game. And Australians are great at cricket, and so are the Kiwis. And so the ambassador organised this game of cricket, which was played at somewhere on the Windsor estate. and the Holy See's team won. And I was told that there was shock in the English quarters that they had been beaten by the Holy See. I think some of them were expecting a team of Spaniards and Italians, and instead they got a team of Australians and we would say Kiwis or New Zealanders, so we just beat them. So we're proud of that.
Isn't that fascinating? Wow. Now, when we see that whole description of how people, and very well describe him as who he was, each one basically gives you this picture of this person who knew what he believed in and stood up for it, but stood up for it in a strong but gentle manner.
Yes.
He wasn't from what I can tell, he wasn't boisterous per se. He wouldn't be obnoxious about it. He would just basically say, this is why I believe it and this is why I stand
That's for it. Right. Absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's absolutely correct.
And that seems to come out quite a bit on the writing of, this is who he... But he was... when he's believed in something, he did. And I was fascinated that he did not... I mean, this was well known, but where he stood on it, he did not like traditionis
That's correct.
custodes.
His attitude was that there was absolutely nothing theologically wrong with what Pope Benedict called the extraordinary form. Other people called, the Tridentine Rite. Mm-hmm. He said there's nothing theologically wrong with it. We had it for centuries, and if people prefer that, let them have it. That the reason why the Novus Ordo was brought in was because Pope Paul VI thought that more people would go to Mass if it was in the vernacular. The reasons were pastoral, and so Cardinal Pell, he personally was more in favour of the Novus Ordo, but he just thought if people want the extraordinary form, why can't they have it? What's the problem? And so his position was I think very much aligned with that of Pope Benedict. That the two could mutually influence one another for the best. That if you had many people going to the extraordinary form, it might encourage priests to say the Novus Ordo in a way that was more solemn, more reverent, less happy clappy, and that the people who were going to the extraordinary form, if it was allowed, they might stop feeling as though they were in a ghetto, and they might stop feeling angry, and they might therefore stop sort of promoting conspiracy theories and blaming everything on Vatican II. So I think that was his mentality. And so while he wasn't what you would call a traditionalist, he was strongly in favour of Vatican II, and Vatican II as interpreted by St. John Paul II and Pope Benedict, who were both at the Second Vatican Council. So he was strongly in favour of that, but he just thought, why persecute people? Why put them in a ghetto? Once you put them in a ghetto, they'll become angrier and angrier, and that's not going to solve anything. It's not going to bring about harmony in the church. So he was opposed to that particular motu.
We're going to hear more of our interview tomorrow, but that was fascinating because, as a priest, I've had to deal with those issues of people wanting the Latin Mass. And at first, I was rather open to the idea. I do not celebrate the Latin Mass. I will not celebrate the Latin Mass. And one of the reasons is I don't speak Latin well. And I've talked to people who attend the Latin Mass, and they'll tell me that there's nothing that bothers them more than a priest who's celebrating the Latin Mass and doesn't speak Latin well. So I won't celebrate it. So I don't celebrate the Latin Mass. I was never trained on it. I never will be trained on it. And I work with the Pope Paul VI Mass. By the way, it is not called the Novus Ordo. I know people use that all the time, but it's actually called the Pope Paul VI Mass. But one of the reason why this is important for us today is, he was concerned about people who were attached to the Mass, so much so that they would get angry if they weren't allowed to have the Mass. And essentially that has happened. I would agree with him that that's exactly what has happened. And now it's become a kind of a loyalty that may have undermined the ability to change that. And I've seen some real, I've personally been attacked on X because of me correcting people about their comments about the Latin Mass. I'm also really frustrated with Catholic media being focused on the Latin Mass instead of issues affecting the Catholic Church beyond the Latin Mass. And this has been a real issue. So I guess, in a sense, he was absolutely right that what's happened is you've got these people who are just intensely angry because they can't have their Mass. I don't know if that can change back. I really am not going to be an agent of changing it back, but it was fascinating to see this. We're going to talk more with Dr. Tracy Rowland tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourself a blessed day. We'll also talk about the book of Deuteronomy. We'll see you then. Have a blessed day.
You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.